Granger's Hollow, 1990. It started with Jesse. Summer days in Granger's Hollow were long, hot, and golden. The kind of days that make childhood feel like it'll never end. Jesse Mathers, Lena Harper, Tom, Ricky, and Dee were inseparable that year, riding bikes down dusty roads, challenging each other to cross the creek at the lowest part, daring one another to venture into places no one should go. Their world had one secret place, the Whisper Well. The well was hidden behind the old train station, surrounded by overgrown vines and the hushed rumors of the town. The adults whispered that it was cursed, a place that could swallow your secrets and your soul. It was a curiosity for them, an invitation to explore the things that should not be explored. One summer afternoon, as the heat began to wane and the sunset painted the sky a deep orange, Jesse led the group down to the well. He grinned, that mischievous grin that everyone knew meant trouble. "Say your secrets into the stones," Jesse said, his voice low, "and it'll make 'em disappear." Gone for good. Lena wasn't sure she believed in such things, but Jesse's enthusiasm was contagious. The others followed suit, leaning over the edge, whispering their deepest fears, their regrets. Lena whispered, "I wish my mom loved me more." Dee, almost too casually, whispered, "I saw Ricky steal from the gas station." Tom hesitated, then whispered, "I'm scared of my dad." Ricky, with a grimace, confessed, "I killed a dog once. I didn't mean to, but I did." And Jesse, with his crooked smile, leaned in close to the well and whispered something none of them could hear. Something that made the air feel thick, as if the earth itself was listening. That night, Jesse disappeared. The town searched. They questioned everyone. They found nothing. No trace of Jesse. No footprints, no clues, nothing. He was just gone. People stopped talking about him. They stopped asking questions. They moved on, like people do when a child vanishes without a trace. But Lena and the others couldn't forget. Granger's Hollow, present day, 2020. Lena Harper never really left Granger's Hollow. She had tried. She'd gone to college, worked in the city, even gotten engaged. But life had a way of pulling her back. When her mother passed, Lena inherited the old house and returned to the town she had tried so hard to forget. But the memories wouldn't stay buried. It started slowly, the phone calls, static-filled. The voice was always distorted, but it was there, unmistakable. Then it was the dreams. Every night the same thing. The well, Jesse's face, and that voice again, calling out to her. "You forgot me." It was Jesse, she was sure of it. She had to go back. When Tom appeared at her door, his face drawn and haggard, it didn't surprise her. "You're hearing it too, right?" he asked, his voice trembling. His eyes were haunted. "It's him, Lena. It's Jesse." Lena nodded. "The dreams, the voice. I think he's back." Tom shook his head. "No. It's more than that. Ricky's dead. Dee's back in town, and the well, it's open again." Lena felt her stomach drop. "Open?" They didn't speak again until they stood in front of the well, the moonlight casting eerie shadows over the ruins of the old stone structure. The well had been exposed, the boards and bricks ripped away, revealing the yawning abyss below. All rotten scent drifted up from the hall. Lena took a step forward, staring into the blackness. A voice, familiar and cold, rose from the depths. "Come back down. Let me show you what you left behind." Granger's Hollow, present day, 2020. The air in Granger's Hollow felt heavier now, like the town had changed overnight, pulling in the past with it. The streets seemed quieter, emptier. And the well, now uncovered, called to them like a forgotten memory. Lena, Tom, and Dee stood in front of the well, the same one they had visited years ago when they were children. It had been sealed for so long, but now it was open again, its mouth gaping wide, as though it had been waiting for them. The voice, Jesse's voice, still echoed in Lena's mind. "Come back down. Let me show you what you left behind." Dee stepped forward, her expression grim. "I don't want to go down there. We already know what happened. Jesse's gone. We moved on. We have to move on." Tom stood with his arms crossed, staring down into the darkness. "We can't ignore it anymore. He's calling us. This isn't over." Lena's heart pounded. She was terrified, but she knew that somehow they couldn't run away. Not from Jesse. Not from whatever it was that had taken him. Whatever it was that had taken all of them. "Remember what happened when we left that summer?" Lena said softly. "Jesse disappeared. We ignored it. We never came back. And then, everything just got worse." The others didn't say anything, but they knew. They all knew. Dee finally spoke, voice shaky. "Okay, but if we're doing this, if we're going down there, we have to be ready for what we find. It might not be just Jesse down there anymore." The descent, the well was thick, humid. It smelled of earth and decay, like something ancient and forgotten. Their flashlights flickered as they made their way down, each step feeling heavier than the last. The walls were slick with wet moss and grime, and the echo of their footsteps seemed to carry further than it should. Lena felt a chill crawl down her spine. The whispers began almost immediately. "You didn't try hard enough." The voices were soft, distorted, like they were coming from all directions at once. They sounded familiar. "Lena, you left me." It wasn't just Jesse's voice anymore. It was their own, too. The things they had buried. The regrets they had never let go. And then it came. A shape rose from the darkness ahead. At first, it was just a blur, something moving, something growing. But as it came closer, Lena saw the truth of it. It was Jesse, but it wasn't. It looked like him. Tall, dark hair, eyes that were full of emptiness. But there was something off, something wrong. His skin was too pale, his smile too wide. And his eyes weren't just empty, they were voids. Bottomless, black holes that seemed to suck in the very light around them. Tom froze. "That's not him. That's not Jesse." The figure tilted its head, mimicking Jesse's grin. "Of course it's me." "Yeah, didn't you miss me?" Lena stepped back, heart racing. "No, you're not him. You're not Jesse." The figure's face twisted into something darker. "But you wore my face. And you still wear it. All of you." And with that, the thing lunged forward, the mouth. Lena screamed and stumbled backward, but the thing was fast, too fast. It moved like liquid shadow, twisting and flowing, a grotesque imitation of the boy they had once known. And as it moved, the walls of the well seemed to close in around them, pressing tighter, suffocatingly tight. Tom grabbed Lena's arm, pulling her back. "We have to get out of here." But the thing wasn't done. It wasn't just a ghost. It was something worse. It was the thing that had been waiting, watching, feeding on their guilt, their fear, their regrets. It opened its mouth, a gaping hole that seemed to stretch impossibly wide, like an abyss that could swallow them whole. Lena's breath caught in her throat. The mouth was a shape, a nightmare made from the twisted reflections of their pasts, their mistakes, their darkest thoughts. It wasn't a demon. It wasn't a ghost. It was a wound, a place where everything they had hidden, buried, or forgotten had festered and grown. Dee backed away, her voice trembling. "We can't let it get us. We have to starve it." "Starve it?" Tom asked, panic creeping into his voice. "We have to face it," Lena said, trembling. "We have to give it everything we've buried, everything we've kept hidden. The more it feeds, the stronger it gets." Tom and Dee exchanged a look. Then, slowly, they began to speak. I never told anyone, Tom began, his voice shaking. But when I was younger, I found my dad's body. I saw him hanging from the ceiling, and I didn't help. I just left him there. I couldn't... Dee cut in, her voice barely above a whisper. I killed my sister. I was driving that night. I was drunk. She begged me not to drive, but I didn't listen. Lena closed her eyes, breathing hard. She couldn't stop. She couldn't stop it now. I wished Jesse would go away. I wished it so badly. And the next day, he did. The mouth let out an ear-splitting screech. It was feeding on their guilt, on their shame. It was growing stronger with every confession. And then everything shattered. The collapse. The well trembled beneath them, the walls cracking as if the earth itself was rejecting the creature they had awakened. The mouth began to fold in on itself, twisting and folding like paper in flames. The air grew thick with the smell of burning memories. "Run!" Dee screamed. They turned and bolted, climbing desperately up the ladder, but the ground beneath them was shaking, the air thick with smoke and dust. The walls were collapsing. The well was crumbling. The mouth was dying, but not without a final scream. Lena climbed faster. She couldn't breathe. The darkness reached for her, fingers made of shadows, dragging her down. Her heart pounded. She couldn't let it win. Not again! They broke through the surface just as the ground caved in. The well collapsed into the earth, swallowed by the darkness. And for the first time in years, the town of Granger's Hollow fell silent. Granger's Hollow, 1 week later. The days after the collapse of the well were strange. Lena couldn't remember the last time she had slept for more than a few hours without waking up in a cold sweat. The nightmares were worse now, more vivid. She kept hearing the whispers, always at the edge of her hearing, just beneath the surface. And the air, always thick and suffocating, as if something was still watching her. Tom and Dee weren't any better. They met at the diner every morning, huddled in their booth, eyes scanning the room, as if the shadows themselves might come to life and drag them back into the darkness. But nothing came, not yet. "Do you think it's over?" Dee asked, staring out the window, her hands wrapped around her coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Lena shook her head. "No, I can feel it. It's not gone, not completely." Tom slumped in his seat, his face gaunt and pale. "It's still out there, in the town, in the people. I've heard rumors. People talking in their sleep, saying things." Lena's heart skipped a beat. "What things?" "Things about the well, about the mouth," he said, his voice low. "I think it's still feeding on all of us." Lena swallowed hard. "We have to stop it. A plan to finish it." That afternoon, they drove to the edge of town, to the cemetery where Jesse's family had been buried. It felt wrong, like they were walking into something they should never have touched, but they needed to find answers. If they were going to stop this once and for all, they had to understand what the mouth was, what it had been all these years. Dee stood at the foot of Jesse's grave, her face pale. She wiped her eyes, but the tears wouldn't stop. "I'm sorry, Jesse. I'm so sorry." Lena put a hand on her shoulder. "We all are." Tom turned, scanning the old graveyard. His gaze landed on something, the crumbling remnants of a stone wall near the edge of the cemetery. "Over there." They approached cautiously, the wind rustling the dead leaves around them. As they drew closer, Lena felt the air grow heavier, thicker. She could almost feel it. Something old, something ancient, buried beneath their feet. It was the mouth. It had never left. It was feeding on the town, on them. Tom knelt beside the stone wall. "It's buried here." Lena felt a chill. "What is?" He ran his fingers along the cracked stones. The truth, the ritual. It was Dee who first suggested the ritual. "You remember the stories," she said, her voice tight. "The old ways, how they used to protect towns from things like this." Lena and Tom exchanged glances. It felt like a lifetime ago that they had heard those stories whispered by their parents, the town elders. But they had never truly believed in them. Not until now. "We need to trap it," Dee continued, "just like they did before. The old ones, the ones who sealed the well. We need to bind it, force it to stay where it belongs." Tom frowned. "But how?" He turned to Lena. "You have the brick, don't you?" Lena nodded, reaching into her bag. She had kept it all these years, the same brick from the well, the one with Jesse's name carved into it. It was the only piece of the past that had never been lost. "We'll use it," Lena said, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. "We'll use it to seal the mouth. If we can trap it, we can starve it." They returned to the well, the ruins of it now, a massive hole where the earth had collapsed in on itself. The air around it still hummed with an unnatural energy, like the ground was alive with something dark and hungry. Lena knelt beside the hole, holding the brick in her hands. Her fingers trembled as she carved new words into the stone, words she had never seen before, ancient symbols she didn't fully understand. They were the language of binding, the language of traps. Tom and Dee stood behind her, keeping watch, but Lena felt as if the entire town was holding its breath. The mouth was still here. She could feel it, clawing at the edges of her mind, whispering its hunger. She placed the brick into the center of the hole and began the chant. Her voice was low at first, barely above a whisper, but as the words grew louder, the air grew colder. The shadows around them began to twist and churn, and the ground beneath them trembled. "Lena, hurry!" Tom shouted, his voice breaking through the noise. But it was too late. The mouth rose from the darkness once again, its massive form unfolding like an enormous, writhing shadow. It was a shape made of hunger and fear, an entity that had been fed for years. And now it was free. Lena's heart raced, but she kept chanting. The brick glowed, pulsing with a dark energy, and she pressed it deeper into the earth. The ground beneath them cracked, splitting wide open, and the mouth let out an ear-splitting scream. Its hunger raking through the air. Then, with a final, desperate cry, the earth sealed shut. The mouth fell silent. For a moment there was nothing. The ground was still. The air was thick with silence. The following days were strange. The whispers stopped. The dreams stopped. The weight of the town, the darkness that had always clung to it, began to lift, but not completely. Lena, Tom, and Dee gathered at the diner, each of them wearing the look of someone who had survived something they couldn't fully understand. The town still felt heavy, haunted, but the mouth had been starved. For now, it was quiet. "Do you think it's gone?" Lena asked quietly. "I don't know," Tom said, staring out the window. "But I think it's waiting, watching." Dee met Lena's gaze. "We'll be ready. We won't let it have us again." Granger's Hollow, present day, 2020. The town of Granger's Hollow was never truly quiet. Even after everything that had happened, the well, the mouth, the disappearances, it still hummed with the same uneasy silence, like the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. But for now, the whispers had stopped. The nightmare had been sealed. But Lena knew better. She could feel it in her bones. The mouth hadn't been truly vanquished. It had just been stopped, temporarily, trapped in the earth once more. It was only a matter of time before it found a way to return. And then there was the matter of Jesse, his disappearance, his voice. It had never fully left her. She thought about him every day. His smile, his voice, the way he had once been the leader of their group, the one who had dared them to explore the dark corners of the world. She hadn't realized how much she had depended on him until he was gone. It was time to end this, once and for all. Started with a phone call. Lena was sitting at her kitchen table staring out the window when the phone rang. It was an old, familiar sound. It had been ringing for weeks. Every night at the same time. And every time she picked it up, there was nothing on the other end. Only static. But this time, the voice was clearer. She froze. Jesse? Her voice cracked. I've been waiting for you to come back. We can finish this together. Her heart raced. She knew it wasn't him. Not really, but the voice. It was his. She felt the familiar pull of something dark, something that had been waiting for her. She grabbed her jacket and headed for the door, not bothering to tell Tom or Dee. They would come, of course, they always did. But this was something she had to face alone. The search for the truth. The road to the old train station was empty. The trees lining the way twisted and gnarled, their bare branches reaching like claws into the sky. Lena could barely see where the station ended and the woods began. It was like the entire town was buried under a thick blanket of fog, as if the earth was hiding something from her, something she didn't want to find. She reached the station, where the well had once been, where Jesse had vanished. The ground was still scarred from the collapse, the air heavy with the sense that something was missing. She crouched near the remains of the well, her fingers brushing the loose dirt and stones. There was no sign of the mouth, no hint of the darkness that had once consumed everything. But as she stood, she heard it, a soft whisper like the wind stirring the leaves. But there was something more, something familiar. Lena, she spun around. Standing at the edge of the station was Jesse, or someone who looked like him. He was tall, dark-haired, with those same empty eyes, the same twisted smile that had haunted her dreams. No, this isn't you," Lena whispered. His grin widened. "I told you, you can't run from me. You can't run from what you've done." Lena's pulse raced, and she took a step back. "I didn't do anything. I didn't—" "You did," Jesse said, his voice low and cold. "You left me. You left me to die. You made your choice." Lena's throat tightened. "I didn't know." "You didn't care," Jesse interrupted. "None of you did." The world around her began to spin, the air thickening, closing in like a vice. The ground beneath her feet trembled. She could hear it again. The whispers. They were all around her now, swirling through the station like an angry storm. "You left me." Lena couldn't breathe. The pressure of the words, the weight of them was suffocating. She had to escape. But as she turned to run, she felt something grab her wrist. It wasn't Jesse. It was the mouth, the thing that had taken Jesse. The thing that had devoured her friends' lives. The thing that had always been there. Waiting. The final confrontation. Screamed, trying to pull away, but the thing's grip was too strong. She felt its cold tendrils wrapping around her, pulling her down into the earth. She could hear it feeding, its hunger growing, echoing in her head. "We're not done, Lena. We'll never be done." She could feel the darkness consuming her, feel herself slipping into the void. But then she heard a familiar voice, Tom's voice, calling to her. "Lena, hold on." Tom and Dee appeared, running toward her through the fog. They were armed with shovels, picks, anything they could find. But they weren't alone. Behind them, standing at the edge of the station, were the ghosts of their past. Ricky, Dee's sister, the others. All of them, watching, waiting. Dee shouted, "Lena, we're here. We're not letting you go." Lena's heart thudded in her chest. She tried to reach for them, but the mouth had her too tightly. Her fingers scraped the earth, digging into the dirt, and then, in a final act of defiance, She whispered the words she had forgotten, the ones that had bound the mouth before. Not again. The mouth screamed, but Lena didn't stop. She fought it with every ounce of her strength, and just when it seemed she couldn't hold on any longer, she felt a shift. The pressure on her wrist eased. The thing howled, but the earth beneath them seemed to open, swallowing it whole, and then silence. Lena collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. Tom and Dee rushed to her side, helping her to her feet. But there was something different about the air now, something lighter. The fog was gone. The shadows had lifted. "We did it," Dee whispered. Lena looked around at the faces of her friends. They were still here. They were all still here. For the first time in years, she felt a strange sense of peace. The mouth was gone for now, and Granger's hollow, though scarred, would be okay. But Lena knew one thing for sure. Evil never truly left. It only waited. And next time, they wouldn't be ready.